30, the United Kingdom has a new prime minister. Rishi Sunak now becomes Britain's youngest prime minister in more than a century after Liz Truss resigned last week. He was previously Treasury Minister under former Prime Minister Boris Johnson and triggered the revolt that forced Johnson out of office. He's of Indian heritage and would be the UK's first person of color and first Hindu as prime minister. The leader faces a big task of unifying the country after the economy tanked and inflation soared under Truss. Joining us now with more on today's big development is Mohammed Elahi, a professor of international business from Quinnipiac University. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me to your show.
So the big question here, how does this impact the United States? And should we care about this? Is it an impactful decision for us as a country?
Sure. The US-UK relationship is perhaps the most important geostrategic partnership in the world. We have deep cultural, economic, and historic ties with the US, with the UK. So whatever happens in the UK, that has tremendous impact for our foreign policy, for our economic policy. And the election of Rishi Sunak as the first non-white Prime Minister of UK is one of those significant watershed moments in the history of the UK that is going to have far-reaching impact throughout the world. And Rishi Sunak is not just the first Prime Minister of color or the first Hindu Prime Minister of the UK. He's also the youngest Prime Minister of the UK who had been educated in the US. He obtained his MBA from Stanford University as a Fulbright scholar. He worked for the Goldman Sachs. He understands the US business culture, US political culture, and I am very optimistic that he will be able to deepen the existing ties between the US and UK. And I think as Americans, we should care about what is happening on the other side of the Atlantic. As I mentioned before, that whatever happens in the UK, that has tremendous impact for what we do globally. And there is another point I would like to add, that since Rishi Sunak is of Indian origin, he can play a decisive role in aligning the policies of the USA, UK, and India in facing a rising China, which is emerging as the biggest competitor for the Western world in the 21st century.
And Professor, how do you think this will impact the U.S.'s relationship with the United Kingdom? Do you think it strengthens it?
I definitely think that it's a positive development. It will further strengthen the existing relationship because Rishi Sunak is somebody who stayed in the USA for an extended period of time as a student. He understands the US ethos, US culture. He also worked for a US bank. So that makes him intimately familiar with the US political landscape. And this knowledge is very important in forging common diplomatic policies, in aligning the policies of the UK with those of the US.
Well, very informative. Mohammed Elahi, a professor of international business from Quinnipiac University. We really appreciate you being with us.
Thank you for having me.